South Africa is dealing with floods in the north and drought in the south. And hey, even if your taps work today, this week's drought declaration has real consequences for how the rest of the year plays out. You see, this week, government officially classified the drought conditions in the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and Northern Cape as a national disaster, signaling that the water supply risks have reached a level that provinces can no longer manage on their own. That classification shifts coordination to national government and gives authorities more room to tighten water restrictions and contingency planning. Now, it was triggered by a familiar mix: low rainfall, falling dam levels, and a growing risk that the water supply would be interrupted, not years from now, but in the months ahead. I mean, in parts of the Eastern Cape, usable dam water has already slipped below 40% after dead storage is taken out of the picture. So this is where droughts differ sharply from floods. You see, floods demand an instant response. Roads collapse, homes are lost, emergency crews move in. Now, droughts work the opposite way. They grind systems down slowly, which means that the response has to come before things visibly fail. And so yes, the idea here is prevention, tighter water use, better planning, early maintenance. But that also raises an uncomfortable question. How well does prevention work in a system that already struggles to maintain what it has? So that's what this declaration is really trying to force: alignment before pressure turns into crisis. Households are being asked to cut back before restrictions become unavoidable, businesses to manage consumption before disruptions hit, and municipalities to fix leaks and repair infrastructure while there is still room to act deliberately. This is the narrow window where small discipline now decides whether the drought stays manageable or becomes something that's far more difficult to contain. So while drought risks force prevention mode, our trade pressures are forcing a very different kind of repositioning. South Africa is starting to hedge its bets. You see, this week government signed a new trade framework with China that could see selected South African agricultural exports move towards duty-free access to the world's largest consumer food markets, easing the trade pressures that have been squeezing our US exports. Now, it's worth emphasizing, China isn't just another destination. It's a market with more than 1 billion consumers, with growing demand for imported fruits, wine, and meat, exactly the products that South Africa already produces at scale. But like everything, it comes with trade-offs. While agriculture stands to gain, government is already warning about the need to protect local manufacturers from cheap Chinese imports flowing the other way. So look, after everything that's played out with the US tariffs and the trade uncertainty, a shift like this was always on the cards. You see, when access to a major market starts to feel conditional, spreading your bets stops being strategy and starts being common sense. And so that's the tension at the heart of this deal. A country responding to recent trade shocks by quietly reducing its dependence on any single market and building alternatives before the next disruption arrives. Now, the other pressure reshaping our economies right now isn't coming from tariffs. It's coming from software that's learning to replace workers. An AI company that many people have never heard of wiped billions off the stock market this week, and it's now lining up a funding round worth more than $20 billion. That company is Anthropic, a direct rival to OpenAI and the maker of AI assistant Claude. And what looked like a routine product upgrade instead triggered one of the sharpest sell-offs that the software sector has seen in years. Now, the reason came down to what Claude can now do. Anthropic didn't just make its model better at answering questions, it gave it these agent-style tools that can now carry out real workplace tasks across legal, finance, accounting, reporting, and internal operations. And so for investors, this just crossed a line. AI stopped looking like a productivity add-on and started looking like a substitute, forcing markets to reprice future revenue and margins across the software and professional services industry. Now, at the same time, investors are now doubling down on the perceived winners. I mean, Anthropic's valuation has ballooned as money floods into a narrow group of AI firms. And so the tension here is that Anthropic's own CEO has warned that up to half of entry-level white-collar jobs could disappear within 5 years. A sobering prospect for the likes of South Africa, who are already struggling to employ young, skilled workers. Either way, the market's made its first call. The rest of us are still trying to figure out what that world looks like. And before we cruise on to our bagel bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, ShopRite has expanded its Checkers Smart Trolley pilot to a second Cape Town store, saying that usage has quadrupled since launch, and festive season data showed that these express checkout lanes were more than 75% faster than standard queues. A man implicated in the Mandlanga Commission of Inquiry has just reportedly died by suicide, days after surviving a suspected hit at his Boksburg home, with police now confirming an inquest has been opened as the investigation continues. And South African Airways has reported a second consecutive year of profits, with the group posting 155 million in revenue, up 36% to 8.8 billion. After finalizing 5 years of these delayed audits and expanding its fleet and route network. Now, we'll likely be diving more into this in tomorrow's show, so please can I ask that you like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And on to our bagel bite of the day. This is the first one of the work week, so let's start it in the win column. Let's see what you got. The question is, what term describes the bending of light as it passes through different materials? Is it A, refraction, B, reflection, or C, diffraction? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Okay, so this is insane. There's a sports event quietly gaining momentum, and it's built around an idea that most elite athletes spend their entire careers running from: performance-enhancing drugs, otherwise known as PEDs. So this event is called the Enhanced Games, and it's being pitched as an alternative to the Olympics, one where drug testing is scrapped and PEDs are allowed. Now, the stated goal here isn't just competition, it's to see whether human performance ceilings can finally be broken. Organizers argue that elite sport already lives in a gray zone with constant scandals and biological loopholes, and that an open system is more honest than pretending that enhancement doesn't exist. More so, the financial incentive is tied almost entirely to breaking records, testing the upper limit of human ability, with organizers saying that they're willing to pay up to $1 million for select world records, like the 100-meter sprint. Now, South African sprinter Clarence Manyani says that he plans to compete, but without taking PEDs. He's been clear that the money on offer is significantly better than what most athletes earn on the traditional circuits. And for many competitors, that alone is reason enough. In the end, it is controversial, it is well funded, and it's not going away anytime soon. As for you though, where do you stand on the Enhanced Games? And as for that bagel bite, the answer is refraction, the bending of light as it moves between materials like air and glass. And so a good way to see it is, imagine a swimming pool. The tiles at the bottom look closer and slightly shifted compared to where they actually are. Now, that's not your eyes tweaking, it's the light slowing down as it moves from water into air and changing direction along the way. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, this is just a reminder, if you haven't done so already, please can I ask that you like and subscribe. It goes a long way. Otherwise, I hope you guys have had a great weekend. Wishing you all a cracker Monday, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.